Yo, what's good? Hello, everybody. Joey J Ping here, checking in live. What's going on, folks? Respect My Region in the Building, RMR Podcast Network. I'm your host, Joey J Ping. We've got Connor Pennington of Rosslyn. They're known for rosin in Michigan. We're on another episode of the Michigan Cannabis Podcast. Things are rolling today, folks. A big shout out to our sponsor for providing the platform, Infinite Chemical Analysis Labs, our go-to partner for all things R&D, potency, terpenes, and honestly, just honest freaking science, which is nice. We can trust it. Multiple states, we can trust it. They created a consumer safety program in Michigan to protect customers. This is great. So ultimately, folks, big shout out to our sponsor there. But Connor, welcome to the show. You mentioned you're over there in Missouri right now. You're a mover and shaker, man. You got Washington, D.C. on the horizon. You're moving from Kalamazoo to Cedar Springs. Your guys' building there.
Yeah.
You guys are busy. What's been going on in the world of Rosslyn? What are you up to? What's the latest?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I appreciate you having me. I'm in Missouri right now. One of our partners in our Rosslyn is based here. He does a bunch of hemp things, so I'm helping him on a project out here. We're cranking. I'm actually getting ready to jump on a flight to go back to Michigan and kind of go visit some accounts and just do some pop-ins and see some of our buyers. But yeah, we've been busy as heck, man. We're getting ready to launch in New Jersey, just waiting on packaging approval, and then soon to be in DC. After getting this build out done.
It's cool to watch you build a multi-state rosin company, because the only one I can think of that really does it that's a rosin brand is 710 Labs. Right?
Yeah.
And so there are companies that also make rosin and that are also multi-state. But for you to focus on that product and to have partners and to be growing and scaling, I just gotta say, man, you're fucking doing it. Let's go. I rock with you.
Yeah, I think, we are firm believers, me and my partner. We started in Colorado back in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Had a really rough time with that as COVID was coming to an end. That market just really kind of took a nosedive. Very similar to what Michigan's doing now. And so we went from one nosedive state to another. I always say it's like a 3 to 4 year window before the bottom starts falling out of these markets. And we came from a really long background in solventless and sort of wanted to stay in that lane. We see that as the future. Consumers are starting to get a little more knowledgeable about what the value and the health benefits are of solventless products.
Yep.
And so we're diving fully into that and buying into that'll be the go-to product in the next 3 years. So that's been sort of our mantra, is just really focusing on the solventless world.
Now, I don't say this to mock you, but you've got a steep hill to climb, brother. You've got to overcome THC and distillate.
Yeah.
It's a big task. That's a steep hill, man. But
it is.
I'm on your side of the coin. I'm a fan. I like rosin. I like the taste. I prefer flower-driven products versus trim-driven products. But it's hard, man, because people out there, they like those flavors, the fun, fruity things, the fake stuff. It's hard to get them off. But I do want to encourage all the vapors out there to definitely give rosin a shot. It will one day be, if your only argument is that right now it's too expensive, we understand. That's why we're growing our businesses. That's why we're giving Connor and other rosin companies a platform, so that way it becomes more normal, becomes easier and more accessible, and they can become successful enough to invest into maybe autoflower rosin or cheaper formats that can bring the price and bring it down a little bit for customers, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I think, it's interesting. In Michigan, we're on the shelves at like 25 to 30, depending on where you're shopping.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's what we're talking about. But that's Michigan. Yeah. That's Michigan.
It is. It's a very bottomed out market right now, but I think our attitude was to come to market and be an approachable hash brand. We're not trying to cater to I'm not kind of trying to cater to the chirp chasers. That's not really the demographic that we've been chasing. We've been looking at the consumers that are looking for a product that is going to give them the full spectrum effects of the strain itself.
What if I told you that we're both? What if I told you I need my medicine at 25 and full spec, and I need it in blueberry, blue dream, or blueberry short something? What if I told you I need it in papaya? What if I told you that I didn't like, or that I enjoy? This would be a lie. You don't know me, but I hate GMO.
Okay, fair.
So what if I lied to your face, Connor, and said, "Give me that GMO; it's my favorite." Right?
Yeah.
That would be me flavor chasing, right?
Yeah.
But with intent, and I think
With
that's
intent.
a thing. When I want a sativa, or when I want to go out and do something, I lean hybrid, I lean sativa, I lean fruit forward.
Right. Absolutely.
When I want to hang out here at night, or when I'm out and about in public, dabbing with people or vaping with people, I want them to think I smoke fire.
Yeah, totally.
People don't want to hit my sativa.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think there's a lot more consumers that think that way than a lot of brands.
We don't give them credit for it. We
don't.
We put too much energy as the brand, and we did it too when we were a flower brand there for about 18 months, 2 years. You think you know the strains and what the customer demand is? You might. We might have a picture, but there's always going to be a large amount of the population out there that likes OGs and doesn't care who grows it. They don't give a damn.
Yeah.
They like candies and fruity flavors or fruits. They just want the gelinate. They don't care that it came from this or that or wherever, you know?
Agreed.
So that's absolutely. What I like that you guys are offering accessible and affordable products. To me, that's the rosin to the most people possible is how we get it to expand and include more people in our new rosin world, right?
Absolutely. I think, we're not quite there yet, but we're working on some internal things to kind of craft the branding and the story around the brand to be a little more digestible for those consumers that are walking into the solventless space. So being able to categorize them in very easy understandings, but be able to say, hey, listen, these terpenes are going to give you this element is going to be satisfied with these terpenes along with the characteristics of that strain, and able to kind of categorize them and put them in buckets that allow it a little easier for those new consumers that are not exposed to solventless.
You know how cannabis loves to create words for strains, or just even just the English language. We make up words for things, whether it's slang or whatever it is. Who the hell decided on rosin as the word? Right?
Yeah, I don't know. I always wondered.
Does anybody know how the word rosin came around? Because I feel like there could be a more normalized word.
Yeah.
How about plant juice?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that would be a lot more. I think people would understand it a lot more.
Because, at this point, it's one word means all these other words over here, and then it's science and pressing, and then you always have to give some version of an explanation that involves some squishing. I don't know about you, but I squish like this when I'm describing what rosin is. That's what I do.
Yeah.
That's my squish method.
I just had that conversation with someone today about how it's always going through that process, because I think the biggest issue, and this is cannabis as a whole, not just rosin, I think with waxes and batters and crumbles and all these different textures, things get convoluted, and there's just confusion around what is what, right? So they say, okay, well, it's a crumble, or it's a diamond, or whatever.
You just gave me a good idea. I'm going to do a video that is, what exactly are these extracts live resin? And it's, what are live butter is in live resin, and it's in rosin. It just is whipping it and letting it do its thing, right? Then we get to batter, slightly different level of consistency. Then you get to these diamonds, and then you get to the sugars and the crystals and the HTEs, and they all have it's very clear as to what these things are.
Totally, absolutely.
But the bud tenders, God bless their souls, every single one of them.
Sure.
But they don't spend enough time, because they don't get the chance to spend enough time.
Yeah, we haven't created we haven't created systems for education around it. That you know, I come out of the restaurant world, and I sold a lot of wine in my lifetime. And restaurants do a really good job. When you look at a wine menu, you get a pretty good understanding, at least a knowledgeable understanding to be able to sell $100 bottle of wine to a table. And I feel like in the dispensary world, we don't have individuals that are the somms. You almost need to create these individuals that work inside of the dispensary that you can pull alongside and say, hey, listen, can you educate this customer a little bit about this product?
Michigan, Michigan industry, you're getting called out here. This is a rosin brand here that we need it. We need y'all for it because California and Washington and Oregon, I tell you what, you go to bud tenders at dispensaries in these 3 states, and they can talk about it and explain it pretty decently.
And listen, I don't want to blanket. I don't want to
blanket.
Not
at major tourists, like the major city stores. Terrible. Terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, terrible. I think that's kind of the same way in Michigan. You know, I go to these little mom, like, 1 or 2 store, shops, and those small teams, they're really well knowledgeable about the product. Yep. They're very well, versed on what they're selling. But then you go into these big 30-store chains, and it's just like they're just on a register that day. They're there to sell the product, and that's it.
Great opportunity to shout out the homies over at the Gangier program, Gangier.
Oh yeah, totally.
Where bud tenders, regular industry folks, regular consumers, you guys can get certifications from real courses, classes, quizzes, spending real time, meetups, involved in all kinds of cool aspects of the industry. But I highly recommend you guys get involved. Just Google Gangier, Ganjier. Big shout out to Max, Simon, and the team over there, what they've created. I still haven't taken my class and course. I'm admitting it online, and I'm a piece of shit for that. It's taking.
I haven't either, and actually I should, because I've always respected that platform.
I would love to get that certificate, and so I'm definitely a hypocrite by recommending it and not doing it myself. But at the very least, I'm supporting somebody in something that I believe in. We've interviewed Max. He shared the inner workings of their brand and what they do and how they help, and they continue to include people across the space in the right ways. And so I will be delayed and late on it instead of being a first mover, and that's one of the mistakes and regrets I have with that. And so,
but it'll
with that said, education is huge, folks. You guys got to focus on it. And Connor, for you guys, educate me a little bit on Rosslyn. Where did that name come from?
Yes, so it's actually 2 words. So I grew up in D.C., and there's a town right outside D.C. called Rosslyn. It's in Virginia, and I always, for some reason, really liked the name. And I always knew down the road I would own a cannabis company in the state of Virginia. And so I always said, oh, well, this is kind of something that correlates, but it goes much deeper than that. We built the entire brand off the idea of water. Obviously, that making water hash, it's a very simple process. It's cold water and agitation of the fresh frozen, and it's very easy. There's not a lot of complexity to it, right? And so we developed this way of taking ros, which means rise in the Welsh language, and then lyn, which means body of water. And we combined the word, and so it's risen from the body of water.
Oh, wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah, so it creates this sort of wordplay, and then our slogan is risen from water. Instead of resin from water, it's risen from water. So it all kind of plays off of itself. Becomes a little bit of a tongue twister sometimes when I'm telling you.
Resin from water? That goes hard.
Yeah, so it's kind of cool. And then, the idea that I've always kind of built in my mind from a branding is that the words are so closely knitted, Rosslyn and rosin, that it would create this mindset in people when they would go order rosin at the counter, that they would actually say the word Rosslyn, and just it would become a natural thing. Just like when people go order Tito's and soda, they don't really care if it's Tito's, they just care that it is a vodka soda. But the branding mentality is so well done that they've created that sort of just language that people were ordering with their brand name.
Rosslyn is the future, but it's resin from water, and it's been around for a while. Historically, it's been around. We're talking 2000s, where hash rosin started to become available in markets on the Pacific Northwest, in Michigan, probably Colorado as well. The rosin world of Michigan Solventless has been around in Michigan for quite some time. You guys have an extensive medical market Washington, D.C.'s had a gifting program for quite some time. Now that it's in this medical era, we're seeing, according to our sources over there of Terrence White at Monco,
Yeah.
they're seeing definitely a decrease in overall just visitors to their store because not a lot of people have their medical versus just the gifting model, which would be more open air style, I guess,
Yeah.
or open market. And so,
DC is an
what are you
interesting
excited
place.
about in terms of DC? What are you going to be doing rosin out there again with the Rosslyn brand, where you have the pre rolls and the dabs and things like that there as well?
So it's interesting. I've got a secret love for DC. I That's where my kind of legal cannabis, I shouldn't say legal, like gray market cannabis venture started. I'd always sold weed, in DC, and then when they passed the law, I kind of watched from the outside, or the initiative, it's not a law, the initiative to be able to create a loophole to gift cannabis. I stood on the outside for a little while and watched to see how the reaction was, tested a lot of these different delivery services that were popping up. And in 2017, I launched Joint Delivery, and that was sort of my first, level into really getting into this full time as a career and figuring out where I fit. And so I built Joint Delivery, literally filling an IKEA bag with orders and would huff it around the city and make deliveries, and built that into a very successful business. And then in 2022, I was raided by the feds and indicted by the DEA and a whole mess of things. And then during that exact time, I don't know if it's coincidence or just bad luck, but they decided to kind of create an avenue to allow these gray market, I-71 stores to navigate into the medical sector.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say it's been pretty interesting to watch because there's a lot of there's a lot more involved than just taking weed from a turkey bag and putting it into 8 bags and then going to sell it. And I think a lot of individuals in DC who that was basically their source of revenue and their way they lived, just by doing that simple action, is they're starting to get a little challenged on, hey, this is a lot more. When you have a dispensary every square mile, I think there's one and a half for every square mile in DC. It takes a little bit more than just being a guy who sells weed now.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of psychology and being beyond psychology, other levels of science that goes into retail, the internet, marketing, and every
Absolutely.
single one of those guys is using a cell phone, and
Yeah,
it's a business, so there's some form of math, science, and all these things and variables that play in together to whether or not it's truly successful, sustainable, scalable, growable,
totally.
investable, all these different things. It's cool to see, one, you do something you're passionate about. Two, everybody go through struggles and trials and tribulations. You went through yours, seemingly pretty
Yeah,
pretty extensive in terms of some of the risk that you guys are taking in terms of cannabis being federally illegal and the ramifications of doing that sometimes.
totally.
And then the trauma that comes from getting raided and getting indicted and dealing with the legal system and stuff like that. Like that, all of that is just so many experiences that go into the cannabis industry and really show your resilience. This is
Yeah,
a
I
violent, very volatile industry, and to be here today shows a lot of resilience. And you have a lot of experience and business acumen to think about. Right? There's years of
yeah.
customers and trends and data and the mistakes you made and the inefficiencies that were made and how to improve. And now we look at your guys' business. What are some of the most important things that you feel have helped Roslyn be successful in your operation compared to some of the other things you were up to?
I think we've really just been really agile and rigid on how we operate. Being able to throw things against the wall and let them, see if they stick or they don't. And Michigan's been a market that's we entered when it was on a downturn, and so being able to be very flexible with retailers and being able to work with them and create unique partnerships that are um, customized for each individual retail group that we work with versus being like, oh, well, we're not going to do a delivery under our minimum. It's like, no, beggars can't be choosers right now. We have to really be flexible and rigid on where our price point's at, what we're able to do, and sort of hunker down and try to get through this kind of tough time of very little cash flow and very little certainty on what's going to happen in Michigan. And I think for us, we're trying to run really lean. We're not a big company. There's only 3 of us in the company. We have our guy Tony, who does all of our washing in Kalamazoo. He's phenomenal. I think if you let him hand wash everything, he would, but it's just not as efficient.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of care that goes into it, but we're also, like I said, we're trying to be approachable. So there's a level of not trying to do the most small batch stuff. We have to create volume to create good yields and be able to get our price point low enough. So dealing with shooting darts in a bucket on what strains are going to wash well has been a big hurdle for us. And
seeing as how the episode is powered by Infinite Chemical Analysis Labs, I want to take a moment to shout out our sponsor. We're about halfway through the episode, so big shout out to our sponsor for their efforts in accurate testing with a real science-based thing. And that sounds crazy to say because you're thinking they're a lab, but a lot of labs these days are altering the science to adapt to the business and to stay alive.
Totally.
And so how important to you is accurate testing in the rosin space? You have to worry about yields. You have to worry about the material that you're buying. Talk to me about the importance of testing in those scenarios and how you navigate and manage that to scale and grow and hit those $25 dab numbers.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think the goal is we are always shooting for 3.5 to 4% yields on everything we wash, and that's sort of our where the market is. With the cost of fresh frozen and what the consumer's taking, and that goes back to our testing as well. It's like it's expensive to test. It's pretty. There's some that are awesome. They work with you and give you a little discount, but everybody's pretty much the same price. And so being able to have big enough batch sizes to make it worth the testing, but then also being able to get good accurate testing as well, right? Like we've had to run things a couple times because we're just like, we want to get a second opinion because it didn't come back the way we thought or whatever it may be, or maybe it wasn't as good as we were told it was.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that from our side, we're very adamant on making sure, like I said, our whole mantra is water and really being a part of that wellness and cleanliness aspect of the product, having quality testing that's accurate and giving transparency. That's our big thing too, is transparency. I'm not here to hide anything. I'm not going to paint a rainbow and tell people that the cannabis industry is all gold and Skittles and beautiful, right? It's not. That's not what it is.
Absolutely.
It's a trench, man. It's hard. It's really tough, and I don't think enough entrepreneurs talk about all the overhead and the testing costs, the transport costs, and all the stuff that just any other business doesn't have to deal with. But we're just getting pounded every single month with, just every little thing. And like you said, it creates resilience. I like that aspect of it. But when you're in the midst of the storm, it's brutal.
Connor, do you press rosin? Maybe not at the commercial scale you're at now, but are you a rosin presser too? You've done that a lot. You spent hours.
I have. Listen. My partner will tell you that I'm not like the best. I did our first run in New Jersey, and I wasn't quite happy with my performance, but I know the understanding of it. I'm more of the guy on the front end, kind of handling the front facing and building the relationships with our retailers.
That's fair. I'm the same way. I know people, but I'm not the guy for that. Now,
I appreciate it.
Since you understand the process, can you walk through what the process is that Rosslyn utilizes for processing and extracting solventless hash and what that looks like for you guys? I know that's kind of a redundant question, but this is for all those basic people out there that don't.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe they want to get introduced to rosin.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the things that we have found to be really helpful is that a lot of the grows that we work with, we're working on trying to create long-term partnerships for fresh frozen. And what fresh frozen essentially is when they cut the plant down at its peak, usually about a week before they would traditionally harvest to cure the product for flour on the shelves. They cut it down. They then, defoliate it. So they pull all they bucket with the big leaves. They take all the sugar leaves off, and then they freeze it at a very low temperature. -20 is the perfect thing we found. Then they send it to us, to our facility, frozen, and then we take that, put it into basically a giant washing machine with really cold water, between under 32 or right at 32 is where we like to keep it, and we run that in 3 cycles. And what that does is that process knocks off the nice little crystals that are on top of the nug that you look at when you see it. You're like, wow, it's so shiny. All of that falls off and lands in the water. And so then when we pull the water out, we run it through different micron levels. And so those different micron level catches the different size trichome heads as they go through.
The micron and the trichome heads. That's so a head. Like we have heads, right? Well, you and I both got heads, and both of us we got similar. We got some round heads right here, right?
So totally right.
In our case, it's like our head would catch in these bags, right? At a certain size, right? Basically.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that goes back to what we were saying a moment ago about the yields, right? Sometimes, depending on the grow or the genetics, so there's so many variables that dictate it. Sometimes the heads can be impacted, so they're pushed into the bud. And so it's harder to get it to knock off, so you'll end up with a lower yield. Sometimes the heads don't fully detach, and so there's a lot of variables that go into it, and that's where I don't think a lot of people understand that rosin is so specialized in that way, because one strain, you, Joey, can be running and growing rainbow belts, and I can be growing the same genetics off the same mother even, and just environments and nutrients and things that we're using can change the whole yield that we're getting on our end.
Yeah, my understanding on all that too is that the genetics finicky on their own, even if they are stuff in the same.
Absolutely. I think we've seen many of times stuff that's like a cross, like GMO tends to wash really well, right? But then sometimes you mix GMO with something that doesn't wash. Like the other day, we washed some stuff, some sherb crasher. We thought the GMO was going to kind of overpower, but it didn't, and so we ended up with a lower yield than we anticipated. And it's kind of one of those things where you're kind of sitting there saying, "Wow, we really were expecting a better number with this." So it's hard to develop projections, and I think that's why single source grows like 710 and some of these larger companies that have grows have a little bit easier of a time. Like Wojo, they have their own grow, and so they can control their genetics and their grow environments. When you're just processing other people's work, you end up kind of, like I said, shooting darts in a barrel unless they have real accurate numbers around them.
Yes, I could imagine sometimes it would be frustrating to buy something that usually performs well, then all of a sudden have it not work, or to work with somebody new and then not have that go well off the beginning.
Yeah, and this is and I'm not trying to sound like a jerk or anything like that, but growers tend to have it's their baby. They put their time and energy and their love into their plants, and so as a processor, I have to be very delicate on the way that I go back to them and say, listen, it didn't wash well. It's nothing against you guys; it just wasn't there. But what our invoice is and where we are, we're gonna be upside down on this. So we have to figure out a way that makes sense for us as a business, as you as a business, where we can kind of find a middle ground.
We'll dive more into some of those things on future episodes because I feel like the inner workings of a rosin business and dealing with wholesale and B2B,
totally.
That's a unique conversation in itself, and we could even have people that speak across, the other extract types, because distillate, same situation.
Totally agreed. It's in all processing. We kind of sandwich between a tough spot.
Yeah, these joints don't work. You left them too moist. Yeah, well, we didn't have time to dry it out. Production was backed up. What?
Yeah.
Random things and situations where people choose to do this versus that. But another
that's a whole episode in itself for sure. Absolutely.
Oh man. Well, Connor, I've got some more questions for you before we get you out of here. I want to continue on here, learning more about some of your guys' products, and I appreciate you walking me through the extraction process. Low and slow, as they say, in terms of temperature and the squish, right?
Yeah, we have our in-house temps and pressures that we kind of keep close to the chest that we found are kind of our sweet spot. I always tell people there's not a lot of differentiation IP when it comes to rosin production, but there's those little fine little tweaks.
Yeah, of course.
People say, oh, well, keeping your bags chilled is going to help. But, there's all these little things that we kind of learned along the way that just add that extra.
I mean, I definitely prefer my expensive dinners to have a hot plate, so that way the food on it is still hot. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, exactly. Those
chilled,
things. Correct.
Chilled, or whatever it is. That kind of stuff's important for sure for the terpene preservation, is my understanding. Okay, so I got a good one for you. Where'd it go? I just had it. Okay, here it is. So, where'd it go? How do you decide whether a wash will become rosin, hash, or infused pre-roll?
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So we really have only done one set of hash infused pre rolls,
Mm-hmm.
and we ran cured material. And so that obviously the color is not there for rosin, and terpene preservation is not there because it's cured material. Um, we we always are trying to cater to what the consumer wants. The consumer wants light colored rosin. They don't like dark stuff. Whether it means it's bad in flavor or whatever, it really doesn't matter. It's just
Mm-hmm.
solely off of bag appeal. They don't like dark rosin. So anytime we'll see something that's a little bit darker, we'll find a different home for it, or we'll put it in donuts, or we'll say, let's do our 15-gram jars. That's something we did a couple months ago. We saw that be, kind of a pinch jar, 15 grams in the
Wow.
jar, and it worked really well. We had a great success. They all moved, and it's kind of a nice little buzz about the brand.
That's
But it's
sick.
hard because it's outdoor material from last year, so it's the beginning of this year, and we'll do it again, hopefully in October, November again, and bring that SKU back. But I think we've had a lot of experience. Like I said, my guy Tony, he's a connoisseur of hash, so he has an eye for what's really good and what's not, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what gets put in the jars. And we do some blends here and there. We just put out this one called Freedom Fighters with some guys up in Kalkaska at Freedom Green. Super awesome guys up there. They're doing really fun stuff. We did an awesome blend with them for 4th of July, and it was great. And it was just a blend of a couple of different strains that they have, and so we're always trying to find ways to get the flavors and really kind of enhance the overall experience.
I love a variety of single source. I love it when people do blends. I
Yeah,
love it when people mix rosin when it's two friends taking their rosin and mixing their rosins to make
totally.
something their
Yeah,
own something, like their own little snack there. Like I'm here for all levels of creativity when it comes to the rosin products and just getting more flavors out there. You were talking earlier about how that you felt like you're just getting hit with all these different costs and business challenges, and then we talk a little bit. Then you also said earlier that rosin at its core is ultimately not that complex in terms of manufacturing it and creating it, right? And so
yeah,
it's this
correct.
balance of it's easy to do it, but the business side is very difficult. And so I wanted to focus in there real quick and see what are these state level regulations that make all this harder. Don't you guys have some interesting testing situations out there in Michigan that potentially make things a little bit more difficult to produce?
Yeah, there's a little more stringent, every step of the way. So, the grower has to test the material, before it comes to us. At least that's how we always want it. Is usually it's tested, and then we test it as well. And I think the biggest thing with Michigan that makes it a little bit different is there's just so many layers that are
Mm,
added, right? Like we have to use a transport for everything that goes out of our facility, and so every time something goes out, you're acquiring $150 to $175 cost, and so there's just these little added things, and the testing is it's interesting because, like, for instance, like a hash infused pre roll, it has to be tested as two separate. It has to be tested again, right? We can have the hash tested, we have the flour tested, but then it has to get tested again,
yeah,
right?
together in the end product form.
Correct. Yeah, which is different. And then also like vapes, right? We have to fill all of our vapes. So like this is crazy. So if I fill all my vapes and all of a sudden it fails, well now I just wasted all this hardware on something that failed. And
Yeah,
so that's a little bit different. But other than that,
those are
really,
definitely difficult to
yeah,
kind
that's
to
tough.
try to project that based on the material
Totally.
and the cost of that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so that's why we're very reliant on our growers to do a preliminary test on the
Hmm.
flower so that we know we're not going to run into any issues. Because a lot of times once we prep, there's no chemicals or solvents being added in ours. Besides I guess people consider water a solvent. So outside of water,
I'm
we're
one of
not
those
adding.
people. I do dry dabs. I don't do Puffco with
Oh, no,
water.
Puffco.
No. I
You
do
like
Puffco and Carta dabs, but no water.
no water?
Um,
Yeah,
yep, I
I
was
actually do that
introduced
quite
to that
frequently
via
myself.
Cookie Jar Cannabis in Bellingham, Washington. Introduced me to that back in like 2018, 2017, something like that.
Nice. Okay.
And so
And you like it much
I've
better.
been dry dabbing for a long time. I only do water in the dabs if someone else is giving me a dab in their dab rig, you know.
Yeah,
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 and I don't ever smoke bongs.
yeah. I can't do it. My lungs are jacked up. I've had a bunch of illness with lungs, so I have to be
Oh yeah.
I'm a
I
low
smoke
and
lots
slow
of
guy.
joints with lots of rosin in them, but I don't typically do use glass to smoke or dab historically.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. I mean, I've Puffco, and that's usually
yep.
the lowest setting, and just kind of
What
get
is
things
on
going.
the horizon of Rosslyn? We're at we're in Q3 right now.
Yeah,
What do you guys have coming up for the rest of summer? What are you working on for the rest of the year?
I think for us right now is getting our genetics out, this fall to be able to kind of start streamlining our brand. Um, we really use this year as sort of a data collection. We've been in market for a few years, but we were under a vertical uh, licensing deal, and so it's our first time kind of out on our own in Michigan. So we're using this to get data, understand what strains do really well in certain markets, kind of getting a blanketed understanding of what we're up against.
Hmm.
And then I think the idea is to kind of hunker down and really just get a solid, good momentum and flow in our production. I think we try to shoot for the stars when we first launched, get some really high numbers on volume, and I think scaling it back and becoming a little more refined in some of our things that we do um, to better our process.
Absolutely, absolutely. Operational efficiency huge. Focusing on just certain things that are absolutely necessary huge, and just honing in on the core
Well,
mission.
getting your burn rate down.
Yep,
It's hard to getting your costs down as low as possible is key
absolutely.
while still providing a quality product.
Connor, it's been a dope conversation with you, man, here today. I've learned a lot about the Michigan show. It's exciting to hear about your guys' different deals and the expansion, and just you staying busy there. The industry of rosin is trending upwards. It's exciting. It's bringing extracts up. We saw the bubble
Totally.
grew for live resin. It grew a little bit more for cured slightly. And then now we saw all the HTEs and the blends and the disty blends and all these things. And then rosin came around and got a huge wave. And it's been about that wave for 4 to 5 years now, where it's just been
Yeah.
absolutely on a tear. And so I appreciate you bringing that and helping contribute to that wave in these multiple markets. And so what I'd like to do before we get out of here, man, is I'd like to always share the floor with my guests, give you guys the opportunity to talk or promote or share something important to you. And so it could be, about rosin. It could be something you're up to and promoting, whatever it is. And so either way, man, I appreciate your time and the floor is yours.
Yeah, absolutely. So this may get some people that are not in love with this, but we're launching a THCA line of Rosslyn. I
Nice.
think that as a brand right now, and everybody can read the lines what THCA rosin really is, and it's we're just trying to create brand equity and be able to build a brand that has some stake in this longevity. And
Yeah.
so be on the lookout in the next few weeks. We're going to be dropping our website. You can go on there in these markets that we're not, and you can give us a try and try our THCA stuff that we're doing. And it's all friends from ours in Colorado that we're working with. It's really really good stuff that we're it's our genetics. It's just being
Hell yeah.
put in this form.
I'm excited to check that out because people always talk shit about the hemp THC market for a variety of reasons.
Of
Two
course,
of
there's a
them,
lot of
two
reasons.
of them being, oh, the legal market this, it competes with that, and da 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 da. I understand it. Don't get me wrong, I get it. Oh, Joe, you don't have a stake in it. It was the cannabis business. No, I just, my business just relies on the cannabis industry existing, the regular one, right?
Yeah,
Well, but you can talk to hemp and THCA brands. Well, yeah, that's because my mom lives in Texas where she can go buy hemp THCA and she can't go buy legal weed.
totally, absolutely, 100%.
What is this either or in a world where both exist and Texas outsells THCA compared to regular legal adult use weed for like 3 states combined? You know
Listen,
what
at the
I'm
end of the day,
saying?
I love the culture, I love the industry, but I'm trying to run a business. And
I
when
will
you have
buy both. I will support both. I'll try both. Send me a pack. Let's get rosin and the THCA
yeah, I'll
formula
get you
out there,
some. Yeah,
man. I
send
want
me
to
a way where I
support.
can
I
get them.
want to get you the reviews and backlinks and all the RMR shit that we do. And I think that's just dope,
Cool.
man. Rosin to the people, man. Weed getting it out there to the folks. Rosslyn here in the building. Connor Pennington, CEO, founder, the Rosslyn. Rosslyn.
Yes,
Let's
sir.
go.
Thanks, man.
Come
I
on,
appreciate
man.
having me.
Tap in, man. Michigan Cannabis Podcast. Your boy Joey J. Ping here checking in live, man. RespectMyRegion.com. Infinite Chemical Analysis Labs with the episode and the platform and the sponsorship. We appreciate them. Any Michigan cannabis companies, y'all act and y'all want to get some real accurate testing so people buy your shit because they trust it. So that way your terps are accurate, your THC isn't some bullshit where people are doubting it and talking shit about you on Reddit. Reach out to Infinite Cal, man. Tap in. I'm your boy. I'll see y'all.